you heard right. Ballots in Pennsylvania are allowed to be counted days after Election Day. Pennsylvania is a key swing state, and according to a recent poll, President Trump is closing in on Biden's lead in the state. But having the ballots delayed in such a crucial state could be a make or break moment for either candidate. And if this trend extends to multiple states, who knows when we'll even get the results from the election, or if the results are even credible. Join me now from Dallas, Texas, financial expert and co-founder and chief strategist of GDP Advisors, Seth Denson. So, Seth, what could possibly go wrong with this? And it's just like, you know, the Republicans and President Trump keep getting hit over and over again with a lot of these rulings, and there is a real concern for voter fraud in this election.
Yeah, I've said recently that if Trump can pull this off, it's against insurmountable odds. I mean, the deck is clearly stacked against him, not only from the mainstream media, but now from the courts, from various states that can extend the deadline to go into the election process. And I mean, this is the reality of the situation. I think we're seeing a blueprint play out here for other states who maybe have more Democratic leaders to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe we can move the goalposts too. This is almost like adding time at the end of the game because you may not like the results.
Well, and you think of the importance of Pennsylvania when it comes to this election. This is one of the most critical battleground states, if you will. It appears that President Trump really needs this state to win re-election. And so then we see this coming from the Supreme Court. It's definitely concerning. And as I mentioned in the introduction, obviously Biden has a lead in Pennsylvania right now, but you know, President Trump is moving up in the polls.
Well, he is. And I think that, listen, we all learned not to necessarily just take all the polls for what they're worth in 2016. And I think that the president certainly has the enthusiasm on his side. If you look at those who are eager to go and pull the lever for Trump, there's certainly a lot more of those than it seems like there are for Biden from an enthusiastic perspective. So it'll be interesting. But again, I think that I'm optimistic that this could actually rally support in Pennsylvania for Trump, because many of those that may be sitting there looking at this go, wait a minute, they're changing the rules of the game, and let's get out there and vote.
Yeah, you're talking about enthusiasm, and you can just see it. And I get that we're in the middle of a pandemic, but hundreds, if not thousands of people are still showing up for Trump rallies. And if you compare President Trump's rally just in Arizona this week compared to when Biden and Harris were there last, like not one person was outside. And I saw this video of a local news reporter. She's like, oh, it's kind of boring out here. There's nothing going on. And then you compare that to President Trump in Arizona yesterday. Huge difference. And I think enthusiasm matters, because this is what we witnessed back in 2016 when we'd see these crowds and people waiting for days to see President Trump speak. And yet we were being told that Hillary Clinton was the popular candidate and that everyone was behind her and that she was going to win. And so I'm looking at the enthusiasm, and I think it really matters.
It absolutely matters. And I think, listen, Democrats recognize this too. It's one thing to sit at your house and answer the call when a pollster reaches out, but it's another thing to get your rear off the couch and actually go pull the lever and vote for somebody. And Democrats realize this, which is why they're trying to change the way in which we actually need to vote. And so the Trump administration, President Trump in general, has enthusiastically motivated both sides, right? Biden doesn't, which is a large part why I think they're trying to keep him in the basement.
Yeah. So a lot of people are talking about the early voting numbers. They're hitting breaking numbers. So far, some 28 million people have already voted for president. What do we know and what do we not know?
Well, if you look at the past, early voting tends to benefit Democrats, right? But again, I've said it all along. You cannot look at the past as an indicator for this election. When you look at the enthusiasm, when you look at people who are eager to get out there and pull the lever for the president, I think that the early vote might sway in favor of the president.
Yeah, and we saw these record-shattering numbers in Florida as well. And again, Florida is such a crucial state for President Trump for re-election, if you will. And we've seen the numbers out there when it comes to support among Hispanics for President Trump. It's up there, which has had the Democrats pretty concerned. You hear people suggesting that Biden would be better for Latinos. But at the end of the day, you look at what President Trump has done for the Hispanic community when it comes to jobs, tax cuts, and things that matter. Biden doesn't really have much to present.
Well, he's never presented a plan at all. Matter of fact, if we look at the track record under the Obama administration, Trump in his first 3 years pre-COVID had done more for an economic growth in the Hispanic and the black community than Obama did in the entirety of his 8 years as president, and Biden was part of that administration. So again, my hope is that in this coming debate, the president presses, if he's allowed to, if he's unmuted enough to do it, Vice President Biden on what his actual plan is. And fortunately, there's people out there that recognize that the Trump administration has done quite well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the debates, and I was going to ask you about that. I'm assuming you've watched all the debates, and you're probably looking forward to this one. Right now, we're learning that the candidates will be muted, and that's obviously not to help Biden, or it's actually obviously to help Biden, not to help Trump, because a lot of people took issue with him talking over his allotted time, but it seems like, you know, he's probably going to get cut off a lot, but they say they're going to do it on both sides, and there always going to be just a certain amount of time for both candidates, and they'll be cut off at that minute. So what do you think about that, having our presidential candidates muted?
I don't like the idea of muting candidates. Now, on that, I also might think that this could benefit Trump. We need to let Biden be Biden, because Biden today ain't Biden from 10 years ago. And we might find out during this debate that he's running for the U.S. Senate. So maybe keeping his mic on for a little bit could benefit the president in the long run. Yeah,
because we've seen the moderators cut Biden off so many times when he starts rambling, and he rambles a lot. And I actually want to hear him finish his thoughts, because he says a lot of weird things. Not only is he just a walking gaffe machine, I don't even know if I would just call it gaffes. Like, he says weird things, and as you pointed out, sometimes he thinks he's running for Senate, sometimes he doesn't know what state he's in. He has a lot of weird jokes. I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is. My recommendation to the president is let him talk. And I know that's not characteristic of Donald Trump. He wants the microphone, and I appreciate that. But maybe even offer to maybe yield some of his own time back to Joe Biden and press Joe and say, hey, Joe, I'm going to give you some of my time to answer some of these questions, because you've danced around policy since day one.
Yeah. And I saw that the Trump campaign would like to go back to the original topic, which was foreign policy, but now they're trying to shift that to social justice and climate change and all of these other gotchas, which we've already heard. Like, they've already done this at all of the debates, and it's the same questions that they hit Trump on over and over again. They just want to keep trying to bring up the white supremacy thing, like, oh, do you condemn David Duke? Like, he's condemned David Duke since the year 2000, and we have video of it. We've rolled it on this program multiple times. So it's tired and it's old, and I would be very interested to hear more about foreign policy and where Joe Biden stands on that. It would be great to know. Anyways, we're totally out of time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Stephanie.